Chris, you want to start with a roll call? Or since we're missing Ethan today? There should be some agendas coming. Apologize for that in advance. We lost Ethan to a promotion, so everything falls apart when you lose your support staff. So good for him, but bad for us, right? We'll get some printed here.
Yep, just give me a second to get the agenda pulled open here. Okay. John Benson. Andy Buffington.
Supposed to be on the phone, right?
Linda Frederick. She moved on. Larry Smith. Ellen Hagan.
On the phone.
Rob Rotter.
Here.
Mike Casper. Tom Lampy.
Here.
Jason Leonard.
Here.
Carol Lund Smith.
On the phone.
Dave Ness.
Here.
Denise Pavlik.
Present on the phone.
Marty Smith.
Present.
Mike Harvey.
Present.
Jeff Swearingen.
Present.
Patrick Updike. Bob Von Wolfrat. And we had one beeping after I started. Larry, is that you? Larry Smith?
Larry Smith joined.
Thank you. We have 12.
Okay, thank you. Introduction of board members, starting with John.
John Benson with the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Mike Harvey, Iowa Department of Transportation.
Dave Ness, Des Moines.
Jason Leonard, Waverly Police Department.
Tom Lampy, DPS.
Chris Myers on the SWIC.
Jeff Swearingen, Department of Natural Resources.
Marty Smith, Iowa Department of Public Health.
Rob Rotter, Iowa County Sheriff.
Those on the phone, board members.
Denise Pavlik, Scott Emergency Communications Center, representing communication centers.
Ellen Hagan, Joe Fire and Rescue, representing volunteer firefighters.
Carol Lund Smith, representing Iowa Law Enforcement Academy.
Larry Smith, Kika County Emergency Management.
Okay, I'm looking for the approval of today's agenda. If I get a motion for that, please.
I'll make that motion.
Sheriff, motion, do I have a second?
Ness.
Ness is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Approval of the meeting minutes from May 10th. If I get a motion for that, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Sheriff, you have a second?
I'll second that.
Second that, Marty. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. SWIC report.
Okay. Very much, Chair Lampy. I'm just pulling up my notes here.
You're not coming through.
Mike's not activating. There it is. So I'm pulling up my report here from last month. I have a agenda to pass out now too, courtesy of Mr. Rob Dennert in the back. So I'll pass these out. So we've been busy the past month, at least I have, and I'll start off with an update from the joint SAFECOM and NICSWIC meeting in Portland from last month. Overall, I will call it a success. I was able to present some aspects on our SCIP, including our take on the SAFECOM continuum. The addition of the security and finance lanes that we put into that document drew a lot of very positive attention. And my sense is that it may spark further interest and conversation in updating the SAFECOM continuum at a national level. I know a representative from OEC has asked me for an actual copy of our modified continuum for their discussions. So that's a good thing. I think some people are taking notice of how well this board operates and how forward-thinking we can be. And I think the reception on our take on the continuum speaks very positively on the work we've all put in. So that's a very good thing for the board and for us to see. On that trip, the P25 Executive Summit was very productive. The discussions were very frank about various things regarding LMR communications. Some of these will affect us immediately, and some of them will take some time. The one thing that came up quite frequently was how things like encryption need to be further finessed at a standards level and deployment level. And I'm expecting some follow-up work will be done on that over the course of the next several months within various committees, APIC and FPIC and TIA and TR8 and the P25 User Needs Subcommittee as well. So speaking of that group, I will be headed to the next TR8 and P25 Steering Committee next week. If there are some topic materials you want to see me bring up with that group, please let me know. I'm happy to pass on comments from stakeholders. I want to make sure that everything that we have going on here is heard at a national level at an appropriate level as well. Just a heads up, I'm going to be appointed as the National Council of SWC's representative for the P25 Steering Committee. So I will now be involved in the standard setting process representing the Isicsb board through various aspects of the drafting and creation of standards within TIA and TR8. And then I'll have my hands in at the P25 Steering Committee as well, representing SWCs across the nation. So our voice will be heard from start to finish whenever these things are drafted. So I think that's a very positive move for us. As far as standards go, there's some more exciting things coming within the P25 suite. The link layer encryption control channel is something that is coming out of the comment period now, and I think this will help us tremendously down the road, especially with the security of our control channel and the various data packets that are sent out right now. Many of these are sent out in the clear, and it'll be possible down the road to kind of keep those away from some of the sniffers that are out in the wild. So, as always, if you have something you want me to bring up at those meetings, please let me know. I know as more and more people are deploying trunk networks within Iowa that are P25 based, they may have some nuances that they've discovered that they want to bring up, and that is certainly the avenue and stage to do that. The revision of the National Emergency Communications Plan is ongoing. An in-person meeting is scheduled for the week of June 25th. I'm not going to be able to make that one, but I plan on calling in and attending virtually, and I know that some of our stakeholders that I've reached out to plan on going as well. So I think we'll be represented pretty robustly at that meeting. Have a chance to meet some more interoperability stakeholders over the past month as well. I had a sit-along at Westcom and have some more ride-alongs planned for July as well with Johnston PD. So I'm excited to continue seeing what people are actually encountering in the field. I was recently in Davis County as well on Monday, if you're curious as to where my travels have taken me recently. Update on encryption on interoperable talk groups on Isicsb. We had a meeting on May 31st. Continued the work that we've done on key update cycles and management of various encryption keys. We didn't necessarily get a whole lot of comments back from NLEC, which is what we were hoping to get, but we did get clarification from other states like Connecticut that have used encryption pretty extensively. That information was very beneficial, and it helped us arrive to a conclusion at the end of the most recent meeting that it might be nice if we got a white paper together to take to groups at FPIC and within the P25 user needs groups to say, here are some of the obstacles that we look like we may encounter as we try to deploy this. And here's a potential solution within the standards that could address that. And in the end, that'll benefit everybody, whether it's a statewide network or a local county network or a city network. So I plan on starting that process of socialization of that outline that I sent out to the encryption subcommittee last month and start working from there. As far as some work within the RICS goes, standards for travel, transport, and interstate interoperability have been drafted, and they're going to be start making their way to the surface within the RICS within the next few weeks. I'm excited to show the RIC members the fruits of the labors that they've put in, and that the user feedback being directly incorporated into a standard that is on the Isicsb platform. Finally, I'm still working on that point-to-point survey with the absence of some personnel that kind of got pushed to the side over the last couple of weeks. I hope to have that out soon as well. With that being said, I will yield back to you, Chair Lampy, for any questions.
Was there any questions for the SWIC? Busy guy.
Happens.
Okay, we'll move on. If there's no questions, we'll move on to the program manager with Blake.
Good morning, Board. Blake Tarushi, Homeland Security Emergency Management, 911 Program Manager. Want to update the Board on our process with the shared services and the network migration from the wireline onto the next-gen wireless network. The ICN contracts, as well as the proof of concept, have been signed. So what the proof of concept is basically we were able to onboard Hancock County early as a remote off of the state host call handling equipment. They're scheduled to get turned up August 2nd. Not expecting any hiccups, but that way they volunteered and raised their hand to be the guinea pig. So they'll be the first one out in the state, and again, it's scheduled for August 2nd. After that, we'll begin taking applications, and actually we've already received another additional application to get on the shared system. So I know we visited in the past about the potential for the DPS PSAPs. That notice of interest is out there and available if you're interested, and we can get those scheduled soon after the first one is up and running. So we're still looking at around December or March then to migrate the wireline network onto the existing next-gen network. There's a lot of moving parts to that between CenturyLink and ICN and Comtech, who manages the network today. So lots of discussions and conference calls are being had to figure out the exact engineering. We did host a webinar 2 days ago that kind of covers the program for the upcoming fiscal year. I sent out the slides to the PSAP. The video of that webinar will be posted either tomorrow or the beginning of next week if anyone wants to review that webinar, so that's out there. All of the forms and everything that you might need for the upcoming year for 911 are on our website already today. So, any questions? Thanks.
Okay, thanks. I believe if we get down to the user group, I believe Rob Dennard is our spokesman for the UGC chair's absence.
Good morning, board members. Rob Dennard, the vice chair of the user group committee. Andy couldn't be with us today. We had our monthly call back on the 14th of May. All the regional interoperability committees reported in, and we examined 2 applications that I believe are later on the agenda from Worth and Chickasaw County. I'm going to give you an update on those then.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I got. Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to finance. Director Wittenweiler, Vice Chair Finance, give us a report.
The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, June 5th to review the May financials. Monthly expenditures during May for the Interop and Broadband Communications Fund were $8,667. The April ending balance was $170,485. The governor signed House File 2492 into law on June 1st. This included $115,661 in fiscal year 2019 for the statewide interop communications appropriation. Monthly expenditures during May for SLICB 2.0 were $23,595, and of that amount, $18,876 were federal expenditures. The remaining federal amount available from the grant is $191,546. I mentioned at the last board meeting that federal engineering has exhausted available funds within the contract, and an amendment is needed to continue implementation support. A $55,000 amendment to the contract is recommended, and this is on your agenda later to vote on under new business. So this will be discussed later. A request has been made for the Interop and Broadband Communication Fund to provide $15,000 in funding for the Train the Trainer regional training sessions for the PSAPs. The goal is for the 911 Council to fund the other $15,000. This request will be discussed at the next Finance Committee. If the Finance Committee approves the funding, it will be then added to the next board meeting for approval. In addition, a request has been made from the Interop and Broadband Communications Fund to provide approximately $2,000 for a public safety interop functioning exercise being hosted by the state of Tennessee. And this request will also be discussed at the next Finance Committee. Does the board have any questions regarding the activities or financial positions of the Interop Fund or Isicsb 2.0?
Just clarifying, what we're approving today is the only thing is the approval of the 55,000.
Correct.
That's under new business?
Yes,
Okay.
at the end of the meeting.
Okay, that's all I have. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, move on to governance. Chair Benson, please.
Thank you. Governance Committee met Monday, June 4th. Of that, we were presented with 6 standards to consider. You will see 5 that we did have brought forward under new business. You will also notice that we did not bring one of the 6 forward. We re-referred it back to operations. But for the most, excuse me, but for the most part, the standards that we did receive were in pretty good shape, only required minor edits. So I'll be bringing those up during new business. Other than that, we just keep spitting these things out. We got another 8 on the docket, so we'll have 8 more next meeting.
Thank you. Operations. Marty, do you have anything for operations?
No.
Okay, we got a change in leadership we're going to have to work out and getting that moving forward, so we can continue on the critical path here from now until system turn on. Yeah, after the meeting, let's talk with Vice Chair Leonard, myself, and the SWIC. How are we going to accomplish that? It's an important committee. We need to keep moving forward. Outreach. Ellen, are you on the phone?
I am. The committee continues to forward all the information that we receive out to our contacts across the state. That's my report.
First at outreach, Sean.
Currently, we're working on revamping some of the Isicsb reporting process. That's been a kind of a process since this whole new grant changeover. Other than that, working with AT&T to help try and get more information out to the field. Also working with FirstNet to see when there is new stuff to post it as fast as we can. Maintaining the social media posting that Ethan was doing. Ethan did an excellent job with, posting social media. So now that will revert back to me to help to do all of those things. Outreach, as far as the next RIC outreach, we're working to coordinate with both Motorola and AT&T to make sure we have representatives out in the field who can talk to the Isicsb platform as well as the FirstNet platform. That's still underway. We're a little behind schedule where we wanted to be, but I would anticipate probably Region 6 will be the next region, and that could be anywhere from late July to early mid-August, because we need at least 30 plus days to send out invites, make sure everyone's aware, solidify logistics, all of those types of things. Those are in the works. The other things are we're working on the Isicsb join process. We're working on making sure to formalize that, post up that flow chart, make sure everybody's familiar with it. We're working to make sure that the UGC can approve the new process flow. I'm sending that to Andy Buffington, and I shared it with Rob Dennert today. So that's pretty much what we're working on, is just kind of getting everything ready for the next RIC outreach and make sure that when we get new information about the Isicsb platform as well as AT&T and FirstNet, getting it out as quickly as possible.
The distribution list thing solved?
I don't know that it's solved. We're still working on the buddy plan. So if you get one of our messages, please forward it to a buddy. That's pretty much it. We're just trying to make sure that, going around asking people, are you getting it or are you not? We've also asked our vendors, I have put out a request to our vendors to get our vendors involved. Because, here again, who fixes and supports and maintains your equipment? Well, the vendors. So more than likely, if you get an email from one of your vendors, you'll probably open it. So we've asked our vendors to also send and forward our emails to make sure that they're getting them one way or another. We're going through every crack and crevice to try and get those emails out. And so the vendors, I will say, have been very willing to help us. Both Harris, Motorola, electronic engineering, I know I'm going to miss people, so I don't want to go down and name off people and offend anyone. So I apologize if I didn't name you. Like I said, I've been working with a lot of people. I know Raycom's been very helpful in trying to work with us to make sure that the information goes out. So again, I don't want to go down the whole list of vendors, and if I didn't mention you, it was not to be offensive, it's just because there's such a long list, so.
Good problem to have.
Every access way we can, we're trying to send the emails.
Okay,
Any other questions?
thanks.
I would anticipate, one last thing, we will be sending out a survey to ask for PSAPs and PSAP involvement with interoperability and the use of the Isicsb platform. We're just trying to make sure that every PSAP has the opportunity to, at a minimum, join for interoperability reasons. And we want to make sure that we're constantly in contact with them to get their feedback. So I would expect that some surveys will be going out and we'll be constantly tracking PSAP choices, PSAP involvement, and everybody's willingness to be part of the interoperability conversation so that at least the hubs, we understand that every agency may not join, but at least if all the PSAPs, which are the hubs for all the agencies, if they have interoperability or access to the Isicsb platform, that we can document that so that at least we know that they can talk to each other. So I would expect that to be coming.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Move on to training. Chair Pavlik, are you on our phone?
Yes. The training committee met via conference call on May 23rd. The bulk of our discussion revolved around the regional training for the Isicsb platform. And so what we had discussed was what was going to take place in the regional training, how that was going to be accomplished, who was going to get it done. There was a lot of discussion centered around that. The costs for the training, if we were to do two sessions per each region, which is ultimately what we decided we really thought was needed. The total cost is $30,000. We've submitted $15,000 of that to the Finance Committee, who he obviously said that he was going to discuss it, and then that would be before the board next month. The other $15,000, it was agreed by the committee, by the majority of the committee, that that $15,000, because we're centered around PSAP training, that we would go ahead and ask the 911 Council to see if they could assist us with some of those training funds. So I am in the process of submitting that request to the 911 Council as well. I know that the trainings, we've set a date. The trainings will take place the 10th, September 10th through the 14th. Not sure where the regions, in which regions, what classes will be, where they will be at, what dates. We're still in the process of trying to narrow that down and hope to have that completed for the next conference call, which will take place at the end of the month, so that we can discuss that and then bring that information before the board and start getting that information out to the PSAPs. I know this is necessary training for everybody, so once the system gets turned up and it's fully functional, everybody will have enough training to be able to use the system. So that was really the bulk of our discussion. After our meeting, we did have one other thing that came to light, which was Tennessee is doing a training that they do for their COM-Ls. They're doing a functional exercise, but they also have what's called a COM-L boot camp. And so we're interested in sending one individual, one of our trainers. Wally Walzer actually volunteered to be the person to send because he is one of our state trainers, COMEL state trainers, to go and see what they do with that COMEL boot camp. Essentially, it's for individuals who have had their COMEL for more than a couple of years. It's kind of maybe like a recertification process. We're not really sure how they do it, but we're interested in seeing what they do with that program and how they've moved that forward. And we thought potentially sending Wally down there to kind of look at that and see if it's something we can mirror here in Iowa to build up our COMEL program. We thought that might be a really good idea. So that was something that we'll discuss again at the next conference call, but it did come up in between. So I just thought I would bring that up. Other than that, I don't think that we really had anything else on the conference call. That's all I have.
Questions for Denise? Good work, thank you. Technology is Chris today.
Yes.
Chair Updike is
absent today. It takes a lot to pull Patrick away from the office. He wishes he could have been here today, but he has some things to attend to. So with regards to Patrick and the Technology Committee, the Technology Committee actually met 3 times last month to try to get some extra stuff done. And they did get a lot of stuff taken care of. And so as far as that goes, the discussion of the 700 meg air-to-ground channel licensing continued. Currently, we are still trying to gather ULS webpage username and password information so that we can make the application online to add those 700 meg channels to our assortment of interop frequencies. These would ultimately most likely end up on our ICS 217A. With respect to the 800 meg scene of action channels, right around the 853 megahertz area, Eric Nevins was going to do some research and gather some information on what the 800 RPC has for future plans to change or amend the current channel planning. Any changes to those existing channel plans in Iowa would have to go before the FCC for future approval, so we are waiting on this information to become available. One other thing is that there's been some discussions on maybe streamlining some of these frequency acquisition processes in the future, but those are still in the early stages. Technology Committee also wrapped up extensive discussions on subscriber unit testing and certification of some sorts. The overarching idea on this was that we don't want to exclude anybody, but we have to make sure that functional expectations are met by users. It's really a very delicate balance to try to strike. So in the end, we realized several things. Other states have some very robust testing parameters that follow accepted testing practices. CAP testing is a means of validating functionality at a national level, and so much so that it's used for grant guidance. So we have a couple of resources there. Manufacturers come out with software and firmware revisions all the time, so when it comes to actually coming up with an approved list, how does that look when someone decides to make a wholesale update to their software? You know, do we have to retest the entire assortment of radios all over again? Or things like that. There's some logistical issues with that. Then, of course, that dives right into the next issue of staff needed to run these tests. In the end, the committee decided that it all boils down to what does it actually take for push to talk, lit up to listen to happen. So given those things, the group settled on that we want devices to be able to make group calls, handle intra-system roaming well, which is basically Isicsb tower to Isicsb tower, emergency functionality and registration, affiliation, and of course deregistration and de-affiliation as being the key components for what we're looking for. We can also ask for proof of the workability of these features among the manufacturers because they already do this testing anyways. They do it internally at their labs. They do it internally through CAP testing procedures. The documentation is out there. So given that, that has been developed into a standard that outlines subscriber unit certification, and it's on its way to governance for a recommendation to the board that'll probably come up within the next month or so. In the end, I think it's very workable. I think it's going to allow us to have the largest number of users come onto the system with the desired level of functionality. So with that being said, I will yield back to you, Chair Lampy.
Questions for Chris? All right, moving right along. Down to other reports, information sharing. Does any board members would like to bring up any topics they'd like to share with the board?
I have one, Chair. There are some grants that have been released from DHS. I believe I shared that notification and now some guidance from OEC on applying for those grants. There are some that would probably benefit us as a state very well, from a state level all the way down to the local user. So if you want any of that information, if you haven't seen it yet, please send me an email and I would be happy to forward that on.
Assuming you're going to write those grants for the board?
I could.
Okay. No, I'm just kidding. That's good. There's always opportunities out there to find. I do have one. Ethan's position is now posted on the DAS website. It'll be up there for a week. So if you have anybody that would be a good candidate that would like to apply, it's an Administrative Assistant 1. Pay grade is in there, the ranges, so apply online through DAS. Ethan's position, the Administrative Assistant 1 is now posted online on the DAS website. So if you go to the DAS website under Job Opportunities, it's under the Administrative, if you type in Administrative Assistant under the search, it should pop right up. And that'll be up for a week, and then we'll try to get somebody hired in that spot.
Is Craig looking for a job?
Is that what you, okay, good. All right. Is Melvin on the phone? Okay, let's go ahead and move forward with that. Go ahead, Melvin.
Okay. All right. So I apologize for not being there in person. Just wasn't able to make it this week. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to focus on changes from last time that I had Nick reporting. I do it on a regional basis as well. So since we have a lot of stuff that's already completed, instead of focusing on that, I wanted to focus on the stuff that was active at the time. So in Region 1, we had Blairsburg as active construction, that is, and we're expecting that to be done during the last week of June. So we're talking about in about 2 weeks we'll be done with Blairsburg. The Hardin site was active last time, and it continues to be active today. We're going to take a little bit longer in completing that site because it's requiring a lot more coordination locally than expected. The Grundy site was active the last time in terms of active construction. The last time we presented last month, that site is now completed and it has power. The Hooper site, again, last time we had the tower that had been ordered, and we're actually expecting completion of that next week. So we've been pretty busy with that one. And the tower stacking as well. I believe the tower stacking is actually done already. And we just got a couple of things to finish up. And so we're expecting the Hooper site to be completed next week. Story County, as of last time, it was completed, but we had no power. And there's no change in that one. We're still waiting for the power to be made available for that site. And then the Calhoun Tower, which is a lease site, we're working with that one requires tower modifications. So no change from last time. We're in the process of getting the mods done. So that one continues. All right, so when I look at Region 2, had a couple sites that we pointed out. So the Kasuth site had been completed, but we still didn't have power. We're still waiting for the power company to set that up. But now we have power. So Kasuth is now done. The Winnebago site was the same deal. We were completed, but we didn't have power for that site. We now have power. So we're completed and we have power. So we're done with the Winnebago site. Also in Region 2, we have one of the IPTV towers. That's the KTIN Fort Dodge Tower. We're expecting that to be done again the last week of June. So we've been active with that one. And then Chickasaw, which is a lease site, again active. Not sure we're working through some things, but it is active right now in terms of construction. All right, so if I go on to Region 3, we have 3 sites there. Sioux, the Sioux site was in active construction last time. It is now completed, but we're waiting for power at the Sioux site. The Monona site, was completed, but we didn't have power. So now we do have power. So the Monona site is also completed. We're done with Monona. And then the Palo Alto site was active, and we now have power. So we're expecting that one to be completed next week. Region 4, there were 2 sites there, Springbrook and Page. Springbrook was active, and we have power at Springbrook now, and we're expecting completion of that site next week. And then the Page site, again, is active, and we're expecting completion of the Page site by the last week of June. Region 5, we had 5 sites there. So the Louisa site was active. We now have power, and we're completed with the Louisa site. And Beaverdale was active in terms of active construction. The same deal, we now have power, and we're completed at Beaverdale site. We had 2 lease sites there, Muscatine and Davis, which we're working through. And then the IPTV site, which is a Keosauqua site. That one is active, and again, we're expecting completion by the last week of June for Keosauqua. That's the IPTV site. For Region 6, we have 4 sites. We have Cedar Falls, which is active, which was active and continues to be active. The Zawingo site was active last time. We are now completed with it, but we don't have power in that site yet, so we're waiting for the power company to do their thing. And then the DeWitt site, which was active. Again, we're expecting completion of the DeWitt site by next week. And then the Dubuque site, which is a lease site, is active. So we've already started working on the Dubuque site as well. So a lot of activity, and that list, has gotten tremendously small, right? And that's what we want. That's a good thing. A lot of the common themes is, again, I keep on saying this, and pardon me if I'm repetitive here, but the power, right? It's just been slow to get power arranged to get power at the site. And again, every power company is different, and even the same power company within different areas of the state can be different in terms of expectations and needs and how they do things. So, but we partnered with the state, and we've been working to hammer those things out. It's very effective, but it's still somewhat of a slow process to get that stuff through. All right. 2 things I wanted to mention I think are important. The first thing is as we've been building the sites, we've been optimizing sites. So we have our techs going through the sites and optimizing them. We ran into a situation with regards to frequency coordination, and this refers to frequency coordination with adjacent states, not within the state of Iowa, but with adjacent states. So one of the complications is 700 megahertz, just like 800, is a structured frequency band, and every state has a plan, right? And so we're implementing that now in the state of Iowa, but we're surrounded by states that actually have implemented theirs. So we ran into some interference issues on the southern border. So what we did was we came up with a new channel plan that addresses the state frequencies. So there's not an issue with the frequencies that are allocated for local use, like the counties and the cities. These are specifically the frequencies that are allocated for state use. So in order to fix that problem, we came up with a new channel plan. But again, it's just like the site development effort, it's a domino effect. So what we're expecting is that we have to go back and re-optimize all the sites that we've already done. And because of this, we're looking at a 30 to 60-day delay for coverage testing, because we want to make sure that we get concurrence from all of the adjacent states, so that we don't have to do this again, because it is a major effort to get that done, and we want to make sure that all the surrounding states are in agreement and that we don't have a problem. We're not expecting that, because the new plan accounts for the concerns that were noted and that we found. But we just need to get everybody's concurrence so that we can go ahead and optimize. So in the meantime, since we were preparing for this, one of the things that I'd like to do is we're doing sort of a dry run, if you will, of coverage testing, and I'd like to invite anyone from the board for tomorrow if they'd like to ride along. We got a minivan that we rented, and we got the coverage testing equipment in it, and we're going to go through a demonstration. We're working with our core team, but I'd also like to invite anyone from the board if they'd like to come in and ride along, so they can get familiar with what that coverage testing process and equipment and how the whole thing works. So we're looking at doing this tomorrow, Friday, or at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if there's interest, I would ask that you coordinate with Chair Lampy so that we can get a count, and we can work on the logistics of, how many people, how many sequences we want to do, and all that kind of stuff.
Melvin, where do you want them to meet?
Well, we can either meet at DPS, which is centralized, or we can meet at the project office, at the Motorola project office. Either one would work for us. If there's a preference, we can adapt to it.
Okay, let's just make it the DPS building. It's easy to get to.
Okay. So we would meet at the DPS building at 1 o'clock. So if you could follow up with Chair Lampy, and Chair Lampy can let me know, and then we'll work on the logistics for that. That's all I had. Any questions?
Melvin, I do have one update for you on the power in Story County. The check was sent a week ago. They should be in the next few weeks, if not sooner, getting that turned on.
Perfect. That would be great.
Melvin, this is Jason Leonard. My question is, you talked about a 30 to 60-day delay when you're trying to work out your optimization. Does that include your build-out process as well? Because it doesn't sound like you're quite done building out.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of sites that are lingering, right? But the way I want to do this is we're going to take a sort of a staggered approach to coverage testing. So the sites that are taking longer for whatever reason, right, we can push that to the latter part of the coverage testing. There's no need to wait for the entire state to be done. So we're structuring this so that we can actually do it on a county by county basis.
So just to be clear, I thought in the beginning we're aiming more for an August timeline. Now, what are you saying? It'll be more like what?
No, I think there's a distinction. So we wanted to do the coverage testing in July, between July and August, right? And depending on how it goes, it would be, it could be scattered between July, August, and September. So what we want to do is once we get concurrency, we're going to target the sites that we want to group together so that once we optimize those sites, then we can start coverage testing in that particular region. So while we're testing there, the other sites are being optimized. Does that make sense? So in other words, we don't necessarily want to wait for the entire state, right? Because if you have one site that's way out in the corner, well, why wait for that one when we can test, the east side of the state? Why wait for the one site that's way out west when we can start doing the coverage testing from east to west while that one last site is catching up? So that's why I refer to it as a staggered approach. So when we have the multiple teams, right, we'll target it so that we do it regionally, and then we can focus on those.
Okay, Craig Allen has taken the podium here. I think he's got something to weigh in on this.
Yeah, so we have a by the contract, Motorola will provide us an acceptance test plan that lays out what Melvin is talking about. It's hard for him to produce that and give it to us until this frequency piece gets put in place. Once that frequency piece gets put in place, the plan will be sent to the state. It'll be reviewed by the appropriate individuals, and then that gives Melvin the opportunity, and the acceptance test plan includes the coverage testing. So there's more than coverage testing that has to be tested in the system. There's feature sets that are required in the contract. There's things the network must do, and each site gets examined individually. So this wrinkle, if you will, about frequencies that showed up a little bit ago, he now has managed to work out that piece of it. But kind of getting to your question, it's the cascade. In a critical path, we reach a point where every time it moves a day, everything beyond that has to move a little bit. But the acceptance test plan, once we get it, approve it, and move forward with it, all of those questions that you've just asked will be answered. Right now, it's still being firmed up. But it'll all be done, and I'm hoping that we'll see that very soon. That makes sense?
Does, thank you.
Melvin, this is Marty Smith. I have a question as well. So with all of this, when are you projecting the entire system comes online and live?
So it's sort of a trick question. No, not a trick question. It's a complicated answer, is what it really is, because the system is online right now, right? We got major stakeholders that are actively using the system today. And by the way, those stakeholders don't get affected by this because, for example, Westcom, Woodbury, Dallas has its own frequencies. Westcom and Woodbury use 800 megahertz. So the impact is somewhat, it's not black and white, right? It's different. So the system, what we're doing is, as we, like right now, there's a lot of sites that are actually up in the air. Now we're just gonna, turn them down so we can redo this and then bring them back up again. So in terms of being up and running, it's not that it's not up and running. It's when, the real question is, when do we turn the keys over, right? And that's still going to happen. I'm thinking by November, September, October, October, November timeframe. That's when we turn the keys over. That doesn't mean that the system is not operational or in use. It just means that that's when we finalize everything. You get all the updated documentation, right? You have all the stuff and paperwork, and we turn over the keys and we transition into the warranty period.
Anything else for Melvin? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Move on to FirstNet AT&T. Tim, are you going to help us on that? Okay, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Pierce. I'm part of the public safety advocacy team from the First Responder Network Authority. And I just thought I'd take a couple minutes just to kind of cover some highlights of where we've come so far, and what are some things coming down the road in terms of the network. But I certainly wanted to highlight, the public-private partnership of this. Myself being the .gov side of this partnership as a federal government employee with the First Responder Network Authority, and then certainly my colleagues Andy and Kyle, who I believe have been here in some past meetings, part of the .com side of the house. Representing AT&T, who has partnered with us to build out this network. So, looking from, thinking back, it's actually coming up on a year since Governor Reynolds had made the opt-in decision, where we've really come along so far. If you look, in September, the network essentially came online on the existing AT&T commercial footprint. We launched the local control, the public safety homepage, the app catalog, some of the app developer program. To get going with this on the commercial network. And then if you jump forward to March of this year, we look at that, our core came up online and we started the testing process, the 24/7, 365, FirstNet Care Desk is online, the dedicated security operations center. The FirstNet SIM card started the rollout. So in the upper left-hand part of your phone, when you have a FirstNet SIM, it actually says FirstNet on that part. And certainly looking at rolling out our Band 14 SATCOLTs around the country. Looking a little bit further forward, certainly most of it is looking at enhancements from where we go. But I think a couple of things to note is, one, Wi-Fi calling will be coming online in the near future. And the other one that I know has been heavily requested has been wireless priority service. So that'll be coming online. DHS will be launching a WPS for VoLTE, voice over LTE calls. And so then once that comes online, we'll be implementing that on FirstNet. So that'll be an available service for those who choose to subscribe to FirstNet. So with that, I think, one thing that it's, important to remember that the First Responder Network Authority was established by Congress, to ensure the build out of this single nationwide network called FirstNet. The legislation specifically named it that. It's not necessarily a public safety broadband offering. It is the one and only FirstNet. And, we look at, the unique responsibility of, ensuring that this network is providing services for public safety and the services that they need and desire. And so, what I talked about here with these couple of slides about what we've done so far and what's coming, that's part of the roadmap. But, that's just, from, this past September to March of this year to March of next year. Where are we going to continue to evolve and change? We don't look at this as a static solution that if you sign up, in June of 2018, that's going to be the same product and solution that you're going to have 5 years from now. So we're interested in continuing to evolve the solution and the products that we have, because we know that just looking at the cellular industry, that has happened over time. In addition to that, I'm also interested in hearing thoughts, and either in a formal setting or informal setting. How's it going? I know your Swick and I have had a few interesting, good conversations about a variety of topics, but that's what we want to hear: the bad, the good, the otherwise. And certainly as a responsibility from the .gov side of the partnership, looking for that feedback to see how we can continue to evolve this product and solution that's available. It was asked for by public safety. Congress mandated us to do this, and so we're looking to continue to make the product something functional and desirable. Really, it's that, there's nothing that requires anyone to sign up. And so the onus is on us to bring a compelling product and a business case that people want to sign up for FirstNet. So with that, any questions? And like I said, feedback is great, formally or informally. Happy to take it.
I think it's great to hear from FirstNet itself and your position, but I think it's imperative that we have AT&T here every month.
Sure.
To show just exactly kind of like what our vendor Motorola is doing and keeping the board up to date on the progress.
Understand.
And we work very hard in this state with the 99 county tour and the last 3-4 years to get the word out prior to it even launching. And so now it's here. You want to make sure that the word is spread that it is here, it's being built.
Mm-hmm.
You can really, it's not really starting from scratch. You're not building all new.
Right.
Because we're using an existing network and building upon that. And that's very important here because it's all about coverage and it's all about price. And
Right.
why should we switch?
Mm-hmm.
So it's critical that we get that message across as to why with more outreach, but we can't do that if we don't know the progress.
Understand.
The board members can't go to their entities and say, what's the progress of FirstNet when we don't know the status. We'd like to say, well, it looks like they've got this region pretty good done up here. They're working over here. They're expecting 50 more sites here or whatever. And then more information on you can join FirstNet today with the existing network, because I think that kind of lacks. And we do that at the outreach in the regions. But it really helps here when you're in a public forum so anybody else can hear it that don't get to attend those.
Sure. And I certainly think appropriate as the body that made a formal recommendation to the governor regarding the decision.
Yes.
That's certainly imperative. So I hear you loud and clear, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question for Mr. Pierce. So in the news, it came out that volunteer fire is now going to be able to get individual handsets and basically be on the network even if their department does not issue devices. I think this is a major stride in the right direction for promoting interoperability. Is there any work that you can comment on about other groups similar to that might fit the designation of public safety, public service, but may not have a department-issued phone?
Sure.
And then also, is there other group classifications that may fall under public service that would be considered for FirstNet type access?
Sure. So in the, I guess I'll say somewhat in the cellular world, there's kind of the enterprise solution. That's where your agency issues you a device, right? They give it to you. And so that's managed through one individual or a group of individuals in an agency. And then there's the subscriber paid where I'm a volunteer firefighter, but or even I could be a full-time firefighter, but my agency doesn't issue me a device. However, either it may be allowed through an SOP, or it just could be something that you could just have. And so that's what we refer to as subscriber paid. And in the subscriber paid world, it's eligible for primary users. So think of, if you call 911, who rolls out lights and sirens? So that's kind of the easy way to define primary. And so it could be law enforcement, it could be volunteer EMS, it could be fire, it could be county emergency management or a local emergency management agency as well that's eligible for that subscriber paid process. So it's not only fire. Certainly a big chunk of the subscriber paid I think would go into volunteer fire service, but not just limited to that. The key is that we need an agency administrator, the chief, to basically provide us a list of who's on your department. You know, so because I could just show up and say, oh, I'm on such and such fire department, I want a FirstNet phone. We need a little bit of validation that those individuals are in fact a member in good standing in that agency. So we do ask for an agency administrator or chief to provide us a list, and then basically you get a code. Then you can either go into the retail store with that, or you can purchase online and sign up for the FirstNet offering under subscriber paid. Good reminder. I had that as a note to highlight, but appreciate the reminder.
Anything else? I think you're good. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
help. Is Jim Lundstedt here or on the phone? He's on assignment? Okay. Move on to Ann Roth, the Standards Working Group.
Good morning. As Chair Benson mentioned, we sent several standards from our last meeting to governance to be determined, and they, you'll see them, I think, a little bit later on the docket here today. We're also slated to meet next week again to go over 8 or 9 more standards. We're meeting every 3 weeks in order to meet the deadline that we kind of talked about a couple months ago, August. Maybe very beginning of September, and I'm pleased to say that we are on track with the highest priority standards to be complete by that time, or at least to governance, and then to the appropriate other committees as governance determines. So there's been a lot of in-person work and dedication done by the standards subcommittee, day-long meetings every 3 weeks. So we really appreciate all of the volunteerism that's happening there to make sure that we get the standards done before the system's live.
Looks
Any
like we have
questions?
some for today too, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't believe we have any old business. New business, we'll start right off with the approval of the federal engineering contract with Jim Wittenweiler referred to under finance for the $55,000. We need to approve some more funding for that consultant firm. From now, it's important that we keep that fund solvent for our consultant to get us through from now until we accept this radio system. And it's a critical path, as Craig has stated earlier. So I'm looking for a motion to approve that $55,000 to replenish the consulting fund.
Could you just, for the sake of maybe some of the board members and stuff that may not remember a little bit of it, why we did that in the first place last year is the first year we did it, so.
Sure, we use federal engineering for our consultant for anything we need for the professional language of the RFP, the contract. We've had them on contract for several years, and now we've been using them. This will be I believe our third installment to use for when we need them for anything to do with the radio system contract that we signed with Motorola, and any other highly technical things to do with the system itself to make sure that we're getting what we need per the contract.
Yes, I'll make a motion.
We have a motion from Ness. Do I have a second? Second, Jeff. Is there any further discussion? John?
Just out of curiosity, who is this individual? Is it an individual or is it
No,
just
no,
the
this
company?
is the firm.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And then the names of the ones that have been working on it are Cliff Brown, Terry Forehand, and there's there another one that I'm missing that we usually use that help us out from Federal Engineering?
There was Rick.
And Rick. Yeah, so there's like 3, who's ever available. Most of the time it's been Cliff. Cliff is involved in the RFP heavily, and that's who usually shows up. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Hey, Chris, could you take a roll call, please?
John Benson,
Aye.
Larry Smith,
Aye.
Ellen Hagan,
Aye.
Rob Rotter,
Aye.
Tom Lampy,
Aye.
Jason Leonard,
Aye.
Carol Lund Smith,
Aye.
Dave Ness,
Aye.
Denise Pavlik,
Aye.
Mike Harvey,
Aye.
Jeff Swearingen,
Aye.
and Mr. Vaughn Wolfred. I believe you joined us on the phone after the meeting started.
I did. Aye.
Thank you.
You didn't take my vote.
Oh, Marty, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there.
Oh,
Aye.
Sorry. All in favor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to the user approval under Chair Buffington. Rob is handling that for Chair Buffington.
Good morning.
Morning.
Rob Denner, Vice Chair of the User Group Committee. The first one was Worth County EMA applying for the entire county with letters of concurrence from all of their local agencies. They're up in Region 2, up in North Central Iowa. They're applying as a level 4 user, which will add coverage and capacity. Their intent is to add 2 ASR sites to the system. Currently about 68 radios with the intent to about double that over the next 10 years. The User Group Committee recommends approval for your consideration.
Okay, we have an application for Worth County as described by Vice Chair Dennert. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
John Benson, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Sheriff Roder. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
The other applicant for your consideration is Chickasaw County. This is the Emergency Management Agency, also up in north central, northeast Iowa. They're applying as a level 1 user for interoperability only.
2?
2.
So level 1? Okay, we have level 1 user Chickasaw EMA, 2 radios for approval on Chickasaw County as described by Vice Chair Dennert.
So moved.
John Benson,
I'll second.
Sheriff Roder. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
That is all.
Thank you.
Rob, don't leave. How many, just out of curiosity, how many have we approved thus far? Individual agencies or applications?
I do not know. My guess would be a few dozen.
Okay.
We can get that number for you, though.
A few dozen, 24, 36, 48.
I would guess in the 20 to 30 range.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You think higher?
It's like 50, isn't it?
Yeah,
think
it's
it's
getting close
50?
to 50 or 60, I think.
We can get a
48.
number.
Let me see if I can find it.
Just a comment while you look for that, Chris. I wondered about possibly putting on the agenda what level they're seeking. Significantly different if it's adding to the operability or the capacity of the system versus the interoperability. So maybe just a level 1 or level 4 by their county or city if that's appropriate.
Yes, we can.
So as of today, if this number is right, it's right around 40. And this is unique in the sense that there are some applications that are a single agency or it is a county-wide application. So there's it's hard to discern how many individual agencies are using it. It's some of these applications are kind of done on a collective basis. So.
Okay, thanks.
Can I go now?
Yes, you can. All right, moving on to the standards approval process. I'll turn it back over to Chair Benson.
Thank you. What you have in front of you are 5 standards. I won't recite them out. The governance committee did receive those from the folks at the standards working group. As I mentioned earlier, we did receive 6 of them. One of them we did turn back to operations. We had some questions about, basically what the standard was trying to accomplish. So we turned that back to operations to ask them to research and do a little bit more work on that. For the benefit of the board as a whole, one thing we did notice that we're getting into with some of these agreements or some of these standards is they do, when they talk about sharing talk groups and things of that nature, they do talk about creating standalone agreements between agencies. And it is our recommendation, and we'll probably have to work with standards on this, is that those agreements be essentially boilerplate agreements. That they're not all done willy-nilly. They're all consistent and they all reflect the exact same thing. So when you look at an agreement, irrespective of who initiates the agreement, who assigns the agreements, they're all the same. So you're comparing apples to apples as you look at agreements. But we've noticed that in a couple of different standards that we've worked with. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as we move forward into the future. So I would make a motion to approve the 5 standards as presented on the agenda.
We have a motion by Chair Benson for 5 standards listing system security groups, security system keys, talk group and user priority, multi-group announcement, talk group, and multi-group ownership. I need a second.
Yes.
Dave Ness is second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. We are now on to the public comment. If anybody would like to join the podium here and be on camera and address the board, you certainly can. All right. Motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Second by Sheriff. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.